we need to have a balance between the way we connect with the world with social media and without social media. You know what I mean? Like, because there's ways to connect without either one. So. Alright, hey, how's it going? My name is Felix Grabmayr, and welcome to a brand new frickin' video, guys. If you're new to my video or you haven't seen about I forgot how many months ago it was. 3 months ago. 3 months ago I uploaded my first and only podcast episode. It was pretty funny. I did it with my friend Rex. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I didn't really, I just thought I would just wing it, you know what I mean? I just prepared like a Google Doc sheet and I was like, dude, I'm gonna do this, man. And I didn't even have like a studio or anything, like sometimes like you see like, a professional like podcasting studio where you have, this big table, then you have different people, you have all this lights, and then you have like a mic for each person, but the podcast side of it, we only had one mic, so it's kind of funny. So it's been quite a while, and I wanted to make more podcast episodes because it's actually pretty fun. It's pretty interesting to listen to someone who has the similar point of views as you do, and to try to just to talk about shit, you know what I mean? Because sometimes, you just be sitting, in the car, or you're just out there, you just listen to a podcast, and it's pretty lit, man. So yeah, it was kind of like an experiment, you know what I mean? I was like, I was listening to different podcasts, and I was like, why don't I do a podcast? Because I think, starting a podcast is a very interesting form of content that because making videos is one thing, but then they don't truly know what you're like, you know what I mean? So if you do a podcast, it gives opportunity for people to actually realize what this person is all about, you know what I mean? Like what their point of views are, what they want to accomplish, what they kind of get a feel of what their personality is like outside of videos. And with a podcast, there's no real shift in the way you connect or the way you act, almost, because in a podcast, you're just talking with your normal self, it's not, it's kind of scripted, but it's not something that, is actually planned, I would say. I mean, there's a topic of the podcast, but you're just talking, so, and, I still find it pretty interesting. One of the, big problems was, I couldn't really find anyone that actually wanted to be on the podcast, probably because it just wasn't that big. And I think, I'm just using, not anyone wanting to be on the podcast as an excuse to because it's hard to try to figure out what is your podcast gonna be about, like that time you record. And it's like, I don't know. There's something about recording a podcast and recording a video. Like recording a video is so much more fun than recording a podcast. Don't get me wrong, recording a podcast is still fun, but it's like, I would rather record videos, but, I wouldn't mind bringing my podcast to, like, a bigger scale, like, actually getting, like, a actual studio for it, getting, like, a better setup for my podcast. Like, I've looked into, like, renting out, like, spaces or, like, office spaces and trying to, set up a podcast there, but there's a bunch of shit you have to do, like you have to rent it out, and it's just like, bro, ain't nobody got time for that, you know what I'm saying? And I just wanted to make it official, you know what I mean? Like I wanted it to actually have a structure, you know what I mean? Because the first ever episode, it was like hit record, talk about, we had a list of podcast points, and so we just basically went off that. But there has to be like a structure, you know what I mean? Like there has to be some kind of story behind the podcast. Like I listened to this podcast from 100 Thieves. They're like a esports team. They're like, it's a brand, you know what I mean? A lot of, I see a lot of like modern brands nowadays, they start podcasts because they inform people about what's going on, and it's interesting to listen to, like on a brand standpoint, what that brand is all about. But the only brand I have is my YouTube channel now, so it's like before that I even tried to record a solo podcast, but after 6 minutes I just gave up, because it's so much better to have another person to talk to while you're on the podcast. 2 to 3 to 4 people is like the magic number in a podcast, because you have different point of views and you're able to actually talk about it with another human being, and it's almost as if you're having a conversation. The camera's not even rolling. It's just you and another person talking, or how many people you're talking to on the podcast. So I think that's pretty interesting. There needs to be multiple people involved, not just one person, but there needs to be a variety. And then that's why podcasts, a lot of the times they have guests, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was kind of interesting. That podcast had like 306 views as of today. Anyway, this was a short video talking about a bunch of shit, about podcast shit. If you want to leave a like, if you want to subscribe, go ahead, because we out here, you know what I mean? We freaking out here, dude. So let's freaking get this thing, keep grinding out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.